People are really going through a lot. Today in a bus, someone scratched my head thinking it was his. Today, I'm going to recap a 2017 action crime film called The Villainess. The film unfolds by introducing us to Sook-hee, an accomplished hitwoman engaged in a lethal rampage. She annihilates most members of an opposing gang, then dives out of the building into a throng of waiting law enforcement officers. Sook-hee is subsequently captured by South Korean intelligence, who deduce that she single-handedly eliminated the entire gang. They contemplate recruiting her as an operative to leverage her formidable abilities. Once the decision is made, she undergoes cosmetic surgery to radically alter her physical appearance. Following her recovery, Sook-hee tries to break free from the facility, but is shot by the officers in an orchestrated simulation of her death. They subsequently extend an invitation for her to align herself with their agency. Later, Chief Kwon notifies her that she is now effectively invisible to the world at large, a state of affairs that could alter if she agrees to ally with them in return for her liberty. Initially, she declines the proposition, not wanting to continue her life. Kwon divulges her pregnancy and emphasizes the necessity of her survival for the sake of her unborn child. She ultimately consents to the offer, and her training regimen begins at the facility, culminating in the birth of a daughter whom she names Eun-ji. Sook-hee doesn't particularly engage in the training activities until a fellow trainee dares her into combat. She leaves everyone dumbstruck with her phenomenal fighting abilities, easily besting her challengers within moments. In the midst of her training, an officer solicits information about her father's murderer, but she declines, intending to take revenge herself. During the conversation, she remembers pursuing a man named Jang-Chun, who she suspected to be the killer. Sook-hee confronted him, but Jang-Chun quickly overpowered her and clarified that he was not the one who had taken her father's life, even though he had been at the murder scene. Subsequently, Joong-sang abducts Sook-hee from Jang-Chun's clutches and initiates her into the world of contract killing. These training memories evoke recollections of her childhood. Joong-sang intended to mold her into an efficient killer and subjected her to intensive training. Kwon assigned Sook-hee her first mark, reassuring her that her successful elimination of this individual would grant her release from the facility. She is curious about the details of the assignment, but Kwon firmly instructs her not to ask any questions. She begrudgingly accepts her first mission. Sook-hee journeys to the target's location and eliminates him, only to discover that the man was the father of a little girl. This revelation triggers memories of her own traumatic past, as she too was a witness to her father's brutal murder. Even as she contemplates the young girl, the security personnel of her victim discover her, forcing her to beat a hasty retreat. They give chase, but Sook-hee manages to evade capture by leaping off a bridge and grappling with the currents underwater. She reflects on her father's discovery of a priceless diamond that incited his friend Jang-Chun's enmity against him. Jang-Chun was a bystander during the murder of Sook-hee's father, and subsequently found her concealed under the bed, proceeding to abduct her despite her resistance. Sook-hee made an attempt to escape from his vehicle, but he was infuriated and forcefully dragged her back, reprimanding her with a slap. Jang-Chun held her captive, but she was ultimately liberated by Joong-sang. Overwhelmed with memories of her distressing past, Sook-hee weeps, and following her successful completion of the initial task, Chief Kwon retrieves her from the riverside. She is accorded the liberty to leave the facility. Kwon conveys both Sook-hee and her daughter, Eun-ji, to their fresh domicile, also providing her with a new identity. Concurrently, Hyun-soo, a fellow operative, is assigned the mission of shifting into the same complex and maintaining surveillance over her. Inside the elevator, Hyun-soo addresses her by her real name Sook-hee and attempts to engage her in conversation. He plants a photograph frame amongst her possessions, with a view to creating a pretext for their future encounters. Through their interaction, they soon ascertain that they have both taken up residence in the same building and are neighbors. Sook-hee informs Hyun-soo that her husband is abroad, and in return, Hyun-soo shares details about his late wife. Hyun-soo's incessant pestering irks Sook-hee, who contacts Kwon to instigate a background check on him. Sook-hee hands Hyun-soo the photo frame, and upon further query about his wife, he reveals that they spent considerable time in Yeonbyeon. The disclosure surprises Sook-hee, though she departs without making any comment. Subsequently, before extending an invitation to dinner, Hyun-soo queries about her name. Sook-hee introduces herself under her assumed identity, but declines his offer. Over a period, he develops a bond with Sook-hee and her daughter, frequently caring for them. His kindness impresses Sook-hee, who then invites him to a theater performance, maintaining her disguise. He accepts her offer, appreciating her performance, and later accompanies her to dinner. She recounts her encounter with Joong-sang and her necktie's symbolic significance of her husband. During their honeymoon, she expressed her willingness to forsake her quest for vengeance to lead a peaceful life with him. However, their bliss was disrupted when Joong-sang received a distress call about their friend Choon-Mo. Despite Sook-hee's imploration to go with him, he departed alone and was killed by an adversarial gang. On returning to their apartment following their dinner, Sook-hee and Hyun-soo share a kiss, but she is interrupted by a call, summoning her for the subsequent assignment. Hyun-soo consents to remain at her place and care for Eun-hae in Sook-hee's absence. Sook-hee meets her fellow agent, Min-joo, with whom she is to execute the next mission. Sook-hee swipes a man's phone to clone its data, but the man detects it and threatens to take Min-joo's life. To defuse the situation, Sook-hee agrees to return the phone while distracting them. A skirmish ensues, and they manage to overpower their adversaries, though Min-joo sustains critical injuries. Sook-hee hurries towards the vehicle, but she is taken aback by Kwon-suk's apparent indifference as she instructs the team to focus on duplicating the data rather than rushing Min-joo to the hospital. As the disagreement escalates, Sook-hee raises objections, but Kwon-suk points the finger at her for the ensuing chaos. Min-joo breathes her last in Sook-hee's arms, leaving Sook-hee feeling powerless as she can only stand by and watch. Returning home, drained from the night's ordeal, she finds Hyun-soo still attentively caring for her daughter. Noticing her low spirits, Hyun-soo moves to comfort her, an act that serves to deepen their bond. Meanwhile, the retrieved hard drive data holds information about a gangster with whom Sook-hee had previous dealings. Sook-hee's allegiance to the agency is brought into doubt due to her past association with this individual, leading the agency to suspect her of being a double agent. Kwon-suk updates the authorities that Hyun-soo has been tasked with monitoring Sook-hee. However, he hasn't found anything out of the ordinary about her. Additionally, Sook-hee has managed to find a way past her grief. She confesses to having misrepresented her past, but Hyun-soo reassures her of his constant support as they both harbor affection for each other. Sook-hee approaches Kwon-suk to seek approval for marrying Hyun-soo. While she's preparing for the wedding, another agent, Seon, confronts her, blaming her for Min-joo's demise. As Sook-hee endures Seon's harassment, she receives a call from Kwon-suk, alerting her of an imminent mission. She is instructed to head to the restroom, find a concealed firearm, and eliminate the target in the neighboring building. She readies her weapon, but just as she's about to pull the trigger, she realizes the target is Jung, her presumed deceased ex-husband. She takes the shot but fails to fatally wound him, given her hesitations. She attempts to clarify with Kwon-suk, but she is called away due to her impending wedding march. She finds herself reminiscing about her first marriage to Jung. Witnessing his lifeless body on their honeymoon, she had a breakdown. In her frenzied state, Sook-hee launched an assault on the headquarters of the rival gang, effectively eliminating most members. While Joong-sang probes into the matter and uncovers Sook-hee's attempt to assassinate him from the adjacent building, the mission is delegated to Seong. Although Joong-sang doesn't believe her to be guilty, he grows wary, especially after learning that the wedding attendees were all hired. He keeps a close watch on Sook-hee and observes her dining with Hyun-soo. Joong-sang approaches Sook-hee's table and probes about her past, but she feigns ignorance about him. Concurrently, Hyun-soo is in a conversation with his superior about Sook-hee. He too is an operative within the agency, and his marriage to Sook-hee was purely for mission purposes. Furthermore, Joong-sang never harbored any interest in her, but she held romantic feelings for him. In discussing the possibility of a conventional life with him, Sook-hee disclosed that it wasn't Jang-Chun who was responsible for her father's death. It was someone else, and she was still on the trail of this individual. Kwon-suk insists on an explanation from Sook-hee about her rendezvous with Joong-sang, but Sook-hee assures her that he is merely an admirer of her theatrical work. However, Kwon-suk reprimands her for the botched mission and sternly cautions her to maintain her focus, threatening that any lapses could endanger her family. At a banquet, Sook-hee receives a card hiding a flash drive. Once in a secure location, she plays a recording from the drive that reveals Hyun-soo's conversations with the boss, thereby exposing his status as an agent. She reaches out to Joong-sang to warn him about Kim Seong being dispatched to assassinate him. Consequently, Joong-sang prepares for Kim San's arrival and manages to apprehend her. When Hyun-soo receives a call from Kwon-suk advising him to stick with Sook-hee, she conveys to him that Joong-sang's death is a necessity for Sook-hee's freedom. Hyun-soo decides to probe further and informs Sook-hee about his plans to visit his mother, advising her to contact him if anything occurs. He expresses his love for her before departing. He then proceeds to extract information about Sook-hee's past from an injured Jang-Chun. Concurrently, Kwon-suk meets with Sook-hee, proposing that Sook-hee end Joong-sang's life and begin anew with Hyun-soo, but Sook-hee throws a wrench in the works. Sook-hee confesses to being cognizant of Hyun-soo's undercover status. Hyun-soo, unable to get a hold of Sook-hee, dials Kwon-suk to inquire about her. Kwon-suk remains tight-lipped about the details, but mentions that Sook-hee is unwell and is being transported to a hospital. Later, Hyun-soo returns to the apartment to look after Eun-ji. En route to a new location, the agency's vehicle carrying Sook-hee collides with a motorcycle. A fierce confrontation breaks out in which Kwon-suk gets shot while Joong-sang comes to Sook-hee's aid, bringing her back to the apartment. From outside the car, Sook-hee witnesses Hyun-soo and Eun-ji escaping the aflame apartment. She rushes towards them in despair, but neither manages to survive their injuries by the time law enforcement arrives. Sook-hee confronts Kwon-suk about Hyun-soo's death, but Kwon-suk refutes any involvement from the agency. She shows Sook-hee video proof of the apartment's events. As Hyun-soo reached the apartment to meet Eun-ji, he was ambushed by Joong-sang's crew who had already been there. He accused them of fabricating Joong-sang's demise and deceiving Sook-hee about it, but they countered that if they hadn't, Sook-hee would have uncovered Joong-sang as her father's killer. One of them claimed that Joong-sang never had any affection for Sook-hee and married her only to cater to her wishes. They also believed Sook-hee would perish in her quest for avenging Joong-sang's death at the hands of the rivals, but she managed to overpower them single-handedly. Feeling cornered, Hyun-soo let slip that Eun-ji was Joong-sang's daughter and even made a call to discuss her with him, only to be taken aback by Joong-sang's indifference towards her. Finding himself backed into a corner, Hyun-soo opted to confront the gang, but was swiftly subdued. They set up a bomb near him, which was triggered only after Sook-hee appeared outside the building. Kwon-suk expresses regret that Sook-hee and Hyun-soo's paths crossed under such grim circumstances, but acknowledges the futility of lamenting the past. She reassures Sook-hee that Hyun-soo's feelings for her evolved beyond their shared mission, and that he eventually developed genuine affection for her. Subsequently, Sook-hee keeps close tabs on Joong-sang's outfit, taking down numerous gang members before entering into combat with them. She confronts Joong-sang and questions if he ever held any love for her. He not only rebuffs her query, but also confesses to being her father's killer. Taken aback by this revelation, she challenges him to a face-off. The battle is fierce, culminating in both jumping out a window in the heat of their skirmish. An associate of Joong-sang alerts him about the police and escorts him onto a bus designated for the gang's escape. In a borrowed vehicle, Sook-hee gives chase, eventually making a daring leap onto the moving bus. Despite the concerted attempts of the gang members to eject her, she hangs on and infiltrates the bus. Once inside, she unleashes her formidable combat skills, defeating everyone until she encounters Joong-sang once more. An intense showdown ensues, each striving to overpower the other. In a decisive move, Sook-hee seizes an axe and strikes the driver, resulting in the bus crashing in the middle of the road. After a few moments of recuperation, both rise, ready to continue their confrontation. Despite her unwavering resolve to end Joong-sang, Sook-hee grapples with her lingering affection for him. Joong-sang attempts to pacify her, but she eventually executes him. Emerging from the wreckage, she is encircled by law enforcement. Nonetheless, a smile graces her lips, a testament to her satisfaction of having finally avenged her wrongs. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.